We spent some time on my Donaldson Smith side of the family, and now we're going to spend a little bit of time on the Brown and Ham side. Uh, and I'm going to read a cousin's book of my father, and his name is John Earl Childs. It's called Knocks and Thrills of John Earl. Cousin Johnny, 12/1/12. Thanks for reading my book. John Earl Childs. Dedication. This book is an appreciation of my father and mother, Frank and Lena Childs, for the many things they gave to me that were not received in a classroom. I reminisce about the things I did, and my eyes still behold the great scene. My father's humor was a litter upper, and we were out working in the fields. My mother had a touch that only women have. They both knew hard work and had proper love without partiality for their 6 children. Their good deeds are forever in my memory and flow quite often in my bloodstream. In this book, I will tell of the things that actually happened to me. Some characters' names have been changed. As you read this book, it may bring back memories of your childhood. You may want to hold your nose when you get to certain chapters, and that will be allowed. If you are broad between the eyes, I think the language will be tolerable, but not perfect. I am not perfect, and the world I live in is not a utopia. Some people are so heavenly minded that they are not earthly good. In reality, my body is clay, and I have some dirty earthly stories to share with you. Please don't try to duplicate any of the acts I have done, because I will not be held responsible. Chapter 1. Conception to School Age. Have you ever wondered about the month you were conceived? When gardens were looking good, pastures were green, bluebirds were in their nest, everything in general was growing so fast. That was the time when I was conceived. In mid-June. It does not matter to me whether it was during the daytime or the nighttime, because when I got married, I found out that it is as great at any hour, 24 hours a day. I was born on March the 19th, 1939. When the wind blows the most here in Kentucky. Well, I got a good start at 10.5 pounds. Boy named James Earl Childs. My mother told me several different times that she remembers quite well, since I was the largest of 6 babies and natural childbirth. Mom said I was born on Sunday and I was a pretty baby. But I suppose all newborns look pretty to their mothers. When she and Dad went anywhere to stay all day, she said that I was fussy and did not like to change my surroundings. As soon as we got back home, they placed me in my bed and all would be well again. I grew real well on breast milk, gravy, and mashed potatoes. Soon I was crawling, but only for 3 or 4 months. I soon learned to stand up and took my first steps. But occasionally I would fall. My balance soon got better, which enabled me to walk. By 2 years old, I could walk and even run. I was very curious about what went on around me. Before we ever owned a family car, we would walk to our neighbors, who were usually our kinfolk. My grandparents, the Hams, lived about 1/2 of a mile from us. When I was about 2.5 years old, I decided to slip away from home and go see my grandparents. My mother was in the house working, and I was out in the yard playing. So all at once, I just started up the road toward their house. I was a fat little boy, but I knew this road turned left and at a 90-degree angle. So when I got up to the top of the hill, which was about half of the road, I decided to take a shortcut through Grandpa's wheat field. I had not been taught math, but I knew the shortest distance between 2 points was a straight line. This wheat was much taller than I was. I remember looking up at the tops of the heads of the wheat, which were ready to harvest. I could see the top of the barn in the distance, so I made a beeline for that barn. As I walked over the rolling ground, down through a little valley and up another small hill, I came to the edge of the wheat field, which was about 200 feet from the house. Grandma was sitting on the porch, and she hollered at me to stand still and not to come through the barn because there were some big cows, and that would probably have butted me to the ground. She took me by the hand and led me to the porch. I remember sitting on her lap and eating a cookie while she and Grandpa kept asking if my mom knew where I was. I would answer yes by shaking my head. But I knew all the time that I was lying. 10 minutes had not passed before my mom was looking for me. Grandpa saw her up the corner of the road and yelled, "He's down here." Well, my little heart beat fast as closer Mom got to the house. I would have liked to crawl inside Grandma's dress and hid. They all explained what could have happened. A cow could have killed me, a snake could have bit me, a bad dog could have eaten me, but I was too little to really fear danger. However, I was big enough to be taught. I knew I had done wrong. Grandpa and Grandma had persuaded Mom not to spank me, and I would never do it again. I sure did thank the Lord for my grandparents, and I never did that again. But I did do something much worse. When I got to be around 4 years old, my life went to the dogs in one day. Halfway between our house and the barn was a doghouse. The old bitch dog had 5 cute little puppies. It was about 12:30 p.m., and I decided to go see them puppies. When I got to the doghouse, I decided to crawl into it and play with the puppies while the old mama dog was away. I remember lying down on my back, putting one pup on my chest and 2 under my arms. The little pups licked my chin, earlobes, and face, and it would tickle. Mom always fed us children the best, so my tummy was full of good food, and I just fell asleep with those pups. Little boys do not worry about fleas and dog odors as much as little girls would. I did not care. I didn't have a care in a thing in this world at that time of day, and I thought it was good as a second heaven. I did not realize that going to sleep would wake up the whole neighborhood. While I slept, they searched the house and barn, looked through the hay and went through all the ponds in the woods, but they could not find Earl anywhere. It had been A long 2 hours, and there was no evidence of me to be found. Dad and Mom, that he would check the barn one more time. After checking the barn, there was still a lost boy. Dad was coming back to the house with his head down, worrying. He happened to notice the old dog was not in her house. He thought she was wanting to get into something but wasn't able to enter it with the pups. He went round to the east side where the door was, saw me laying there, fast asleep, those pups. I was awakened by a loud yell. Here he is! They were real glad to see me. At first I thought I should get a spanking, but on second thought, it could not be helped. And I did not plan for it to happen that way. Anyway, the pups were glad I woke up since they were getting hungry, so I moved out and let the real dog in the house. When I woke, about 4.5 years old, my older brother Tom and I went up to see my great-grandma Brown. We lived about 4/10 of a mile from home. I can still visualize her wearing that long black dress with one cob pipe in her mouth. She was a very kind and sweet old woman. My brother went into the house to see Granny, but I saw a yellow can in the grass as I jumped up on her porch. I decided to let him go on in, and I would check out the yellow object. I picked up the can and unscrewed the lid. I could not read yet, so I stuck my nose down into the can to sniff what had been in it. The strongest pepper dust that could ever be in a little boy's nose and throat was there. I whimpered through the screen door that I was going home. I headed back towards home in a beeline with my nose and throat burning so hot I could hardly breathe. Bawling as I ran, I wondered if I could ever get home. In the meantime, my big brother was running far behind and did not really know what was wrong with me. I felt like I had been set on fire. Mom came out of the house, and just as I ran into the yard, and she wanted to know if Tom had hit me. I shook my head no, and I finally got the word hot out of my mouth. Mom got a glass of milk for me to drink, and she had me eat a piece of salty bacon left over from breakfast. This was the perfect medication because the hot steam went away immediately. I then told Mom about the yellow can. We went back and told Granny what was wrong. Mom cleaned the yellow can real good so I could put my marbles in it. Mothers, you know, they have that special touch that no one else ever does. Remembering when the family got their first car was really something for me. The only thing I knew about the car was that you could ride in it. Boy, I was ready to ride every time Dad started that car. One hot July morning, Dad needed to go to Somerset to get something. Big brother Tom and I went along for the ride. That was a real piece of cake for me because I got in the back seat all to myself. And I could look out either window as far down the road. We got to Somerset around 10:30 a.m. after driving on a gravel road for 16 miles. Dad parked the car by the A&P grocery store. He told us boys to wait in the car while he ran some errands. I was still sitting in the back seat watching all the carts and people when all at once I had a number 2 call me. It was a bellyache pain. I told Tom I got to poop, but he said for me to hold it just a little longer. Well, I did for a minute, and then the pain struck even harder. Tom said wait to hold it a little longer. Where is the toilet? I asked. I don't know where one is, Tom replied. Then all at once, the pain to end all pain struck. I did it in my little Washington, D.C. overalls, full and peed too. Number one does not turn number two on, but number two will with number one. I had never seen a pair of shorts or briefs, only overalls. The temperature was 95 degrees, and it was even hotter sitting in that black car. As most cars were black, there I was, sitting in my mess, wanting Dad to come and also dreading to see him at the same time. I did not see Dad anywhere. Then a neighbor, who lived about 2 miles from us, drove up. He parked his car above us and got out. I stopped to say hello to Frank's boys. I was sitting right behind the driver's seat, and Dick stuck his head in the car, and he said, "Good morning, boys." By then, he got a smell, said, "Somebody's had an accident." I humbly said, "Yes, sir." Anyway, he went on, walking down the street. Dad came next, and he opened the door, sat down in the driver's seat. Before he could get the key to the ignition, he said, "Who shit?" I humbly said that I did. He said that the car would never smell the same. Dad asked Tom why he did not let me sit down between two cars and go on the ground, or why he did not take me to the store and let me use their toilet. I never had seen a commode in my entire life. Anyway, we had all the windows down as we headed back home, and still, all we could smell was poo. I know doctors call it feces, and some call it hilky, and manure, and fertilizer, and stool, doo-doo, and bean. But us farmers call it by its true name, which is shit. I was packed with black dynamite because the day before we were picking blackberries to can them and make jams and jellies and juice. And since I was only 5, I did not pick many berries, but I ate a bellyful while the others picked. As we rode along over 16 miles of potholes and gravel, I sat humbly in the back seat and thought we would never get home. We finally made it, but I started to get out of the car. My little butt felt like it was glued to the seat. It was all so hot and getting sore. I managed to get out of the car and head towards the outhouse, and poop came down my britches and hit my heels as I walked. I did not wear any underwear or shoes. Mom came with a big pan of warm soapy water, clean breeches, a powder, and a towel. She cleaned me up real good, said for me not to worry about it because it could have happened to anyone. Here again, I say that God puts the loving touch in moms just for children. I just felt as good as new, and the car did not smell either after Mom cleaned it. Things that happen are not nearly as bad as they may seem. Time is one good healer for me. I can vividly remember being over at my grandparents and starting the car door with my thumb in kerosene. Grandma stuck my thumb in kerosene and then wrapped the thumb with a clean piece of white cloth. The nail got blue and black before it fell off. The nail got blue and black before it fell off. But the good Lord provided a new part that I did not know I was carrying around. A pretty new thumbnail grew back and fit perfectly. I did not think you could buy these parts at the best of the parts houses. A young child who has never gone barefoot on a country lane has missed out on something that feels so good to your feet. I just love to see warm days come in the spring so I could pull off my shoes and go barefoot until the cold weather came in the late fall. The bottoms of my feet would get as tough as leather. I left broken footprints because I have a high off. I was really moving one day, going about 10 miles an hour, I suppose, when I stubbed my big right toe on a rock. It made me see nighttime again for a moment. Sitting down on the road, I cried and cried because my big toenail was all bloody and loose. After hobbling up to the house, it got the kerosene treatment too. Off came the nail in a couple of weeks, and my spare part replaced it once again. God had little boys in mind when He made man, because He knew we would need extra parts. I remember a briar patch scratching. I remember wires scratching, dropping a cross cut on my ankle, cutting my left thumb with a handsaw, cutting my fingers with pocket knives, skin, knees, arms, and hands from falls. But I have healed up every single time, and here I am. I had plenty of mischief in me, just like my brothers. We would catch someone in the outhouse and throw small rocks up against the oak planks from the outside. This would try on my mom and dad. One day I saw my brother go to the outhouse. I slipped around behind the building. I was trying to put a small rock through the hole up high so it would drop down on his head while he sat on the hole. I jumped as high as I could, but I came down on a nail and a board. The nail stuck into the bottom of my foot, and it hurt so bad that I thought it might be in my heart. I finally got up enough nerve to pull the nail out of my foot. It was hard to pull out. I went to go see my mom with my bloody foot, and as usual, I had to explain how, where, and why it happened. She let me know that I got what I deserved. You reap what you sow. I guess it was aggravating to be about half done and then have that rock hit the building that scared the other half out. When told not to do something, try then not to do it. On a cold November day, Mom and Dad were stripping tobacco in a building close to the house. This was before I started to go to school, but my older brothers and sisters were at school, and my younger brother was in bed, asleep. I was fascinated by the way matches were struck. A metal container with a big box of wooden matches hung on the wall about 6 feet from the floor. Mom and Dad had warned us never to touch those matches. I could not get to the matches because they were 2 feet from my reach. So I laid 2 chairs down on the floor, and then I crawled up one of the chairs and managed to retrieve that very box of matches. After I had opened the door to the potbelly stove, I started striking the match one at a time and throwing them into the stove. When about half the matches were struck, I heard the back door open. Knowing it was either Mom or Dad, I had to get rid of those matches in a hurry, so I shut the stove door, threw the rest of the matches under the bed. Mom came running into the front room saying, "I smell matches, where are they?" I pointed under the bed. Under the bed, I went to get them for her. By now, Dad had heard all the commotion, and he was there. When I came out from under the bed, Mom had a razor strap in her hand. She had me in one hand and the strap in the other hand, and we went around and around in the room while she laid the leather on my ass. When she got through, Dad took the strap, and we really went round and round. I was bawling and peeing all over myself by the time they got finished. "Do you want more matches?" my father asked. "No, no, no," I yelled. As I look back, I see that I deserved every gift I received. I feel they prevented fire with fire. My butt was sore for a week. Their actions yielded fruit because I never did that again. They were 10-acre field behind the house that we called the hen house field because the hen house was built on the edge of it. The field was planted with corn, and I can remember Dad cultivating it with the mules. On these 45 acres of farmland, I knew where the black snakes lived, and that there were toads under the cleft of the big rocks, minnows in the branch, and birds' nests of all kinds. I suppose the bluebirds were my favorite kind of bird. They were in the walnut tree at the cornfield that had a hole in it about 10 feet from the ground. I noticed that the mama bird was carrying worms to her little babies. Determined to see the little baby birds, I managed to get my leg around the rough black walnut tree and inch by inch make my way up. I made my way up the tree and looked into the little ones. When Mama Bird returned, she did not like what she saw and dove at me, hitting the top of the hair from my head. This excited me so much I lost my grip and slid all the way down the tree in about 1 second after taking a good 5 minutes to climb it. When I slid down the rough bark, I tore the bottom out of my overalls and skinned my bag, or scrotum, inside my legs. I really felt like great balls of fire. My rear hit the ground so hard I felt to see if I had another crack. Well, I figured I'd better get back to the house and tell Mom what happened. Mom told me I got what I deserved because I should have left them little birds alone. My britches got mended. Little boys give their mothers plenty of work. Before we got a radio, I remember that Dad would go up to Uncle Bill's to hear the 6 o'clock news. This was in the early 40s, and I recall the newscast telling of the war. Some men in our neighborhood were overseas, fighting. I was sitting in Uncle Bill's big chair and talking so much that Dad could not hear the radio. Dad said for me to be quiet, and I said that I did not have to. He then said, "You'll find out when we get home." The news was over soon, and Dad walked fast on the way home, quickly covering the 2/10 of a mile. He did not say a word the whole way home. As soon as we entered the front room, he took a razor strap down and told me that he bet I would learn to keep quiet when told, and I remember that whipping very well. As a little boy, I loved my black and white cat. In our barn loft, we usually had loose hay hauled in from a stack. One rainy day, I was up in the hay loft of the barn, and I sat and saw my cat give birth to 5 kittens. They came out just like sausage links. I remember putting the old mama cat on the head and saying nice things to her while she delivered. This was chapter 1. Enjoy chapter 2 in the next episode. And remember, this story is from older times, and I think it benefits children and benefits adults to remember the struggles that our elders had, and also the importance found in the history of family, and how much we are blessed